Assad says only foreign invasion can topple Syrian regime, so we haven't really heard much in the way of Syria. I guess maybe they've kind of given up on it. Who knows? They're just trying something else, i.e. the Turkish destabilization didn't work. Now the Egyptian stabilization, that's what nobody looks at. I don't understand why they don't look at that, dude. After steady rebel gains in the first 2 years of the, quote, civil war, momentum now looks to be behind Assad. So it goes on here, and he says that this was their goal in hitting our infrastructure, hitting our economy, and creating complete chaos in society so that we would become a failed state. So far, we have not reached that stage. The only factor that could undermine the resilience of the government, he said, was direct foreign intervention. But he said that was unlikely due to foreign powers' conflicting views of an opposition movement increasingly overtaken by radical Islamist militants. In other words, they're funding terrorists. Everybody knows that. Nobody in the mainstream media really wants to say it. But they're funding terrorists. They're funding Al-Qaeda, the same things that they're going to fight against. So it says they have used every material, emotional, psychological means available to them. The only option they have is direct foreign intervention. But there is hesitation, rejection of intervention from most countries. So if we can overcome this stage, and he says here with basically standing up and having awareness, we have nothing more to fear. But I've covered before about how the Syrian government had to raise the wages for the government employees due to, I guess they're just printing more money. They also have this. Syria food situation will worsen next year, so they may have inflation to worry about. This is the thing that I think will take them down if, like he said, not intervention, because they probably won't do it because they don't have support, is Syrian food situation will worsen next year, says the UN. So it says there is a limited window of opportunity to ensure crisis-affected families do not lose vital sources of food and income. Domestic production over the next 12 months will be severely compromised. So it says here 4 million Syrians are not able to feed themselves, adding that crop and livestock production, food availability, and access to food have all taken an increasingly heavy toll. And this is because you noticed in the video I made, enemies at the gates of Syria, which is basically the West and the Zionist terrorist proxy forces. They were raiding their wheat and silos, all of their food. They attacked their electrical infrastructure. So, I mean, these are all intelligence operations being coordinated by the West. So that's how I see them going down, if anything, is just financially, just the reeling from all the turmoil that was created. Military, and of course what they're creating around them. Military action on Syria serves Israel's security, says Iran envoy. Says adopting a military approach against Syria will help guarantee the security of the Zionist regime of Israel in the region. He added that an overthrow of the Syrian government will help Tel Aviv regime get out of a quagmire it has already been trapped in. And if you didn't know yet, the West and its regional allies, including the Israeli regime, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey, are partners in supporting the anti-Damascus militants seeking to topple the president in Syria. Morsi's role at Syria rallies seen as tipping point for Egypt army. The head of state had attended a rally with hardline Islamists calling for a holy war against Syria. Remember, you also had basically Morsi cutting off ties, embassy ties, ambassador ties with Syria. That was one thing. And then I didn't know about this, but this is from the 4th. Army concern about the way President Morsi was governing Egypt reached a tipping point when the head of state attended a rally packed with basically terrorists calling for the holy war in Syria. The Zionist entity enjoyed good ties with Morsi, so it says here that Israel had enjoyed good security relations with Egypt under Morsi's presidency. Israeli Ynet News quoted an unnamed official on Thursday saying that the regime had established good security cooperation with Morsi's Egypt. An aide to Israeli Prime Minister also praised what he described as continued good ties with Egypt's armed forces. So that's what I said before. They're not really there to defend Egypt against foreign invasions. They've already been invaded. And they're just like Saudi Arabia. They've been neutered to create any kind of Arab alliance against the Zionists. Expressing hope that the appointment of this Mansour, the Chief Justice of Egypt's Supreme Constitutional Court, would lead the improvement of Israeli relations with Cairo, the Jerusalem Post reported. Also, the Israeli Chief of Staff also said that the Muslim Brotherhood and relations with Israel were reasonable, talking about basically they launched a crackdown on underground supply tunnels between the Sinai Peninsula and the blockade Gaza Strip. So this is all U.S. aid. Like Israel, most of the aid that goes to Israel is military aid. Most of a lot of the aid that goes to Egypt is basically for Egypt to not attack Israel and to aid them and creating these blockades and stuff. But Israel benefits, whether it's the ousting of Mubarak and creating, bringing in the Muslim Brotherhood. Ooh, they're Muslims. Not really. I mean, it's just the military runs the country, and the military works for Israel, and then these are all just kind of like business henchmen. And so, whether it's destabilized like it is now, it benefits Israel. Whether it's Muslim Brotherhood, whether it's Mubarak. Divisive pro-Israeli policies led to Morsi's ouster. Again, the Iran cleric said, Egypt is the birthplace of Islamic awakening, but unfortunately those who came out of this awakening acted so badly that a coup was staged once again, and the coup leaders took power. Instead of calling for solidarity in the Muslim world, they backed the Takfiri murderers, and even the political arena. They treated Israel in such a way that contradicted their past slogans. It says they're approved of the Camp David Accord and tried to promote Iranophobia and Shiaphobia, he explained. He further called on the Egyptians not to allow their country to become Israel's backyard as it was under the former dictator Hosni Mubarak. Yeah, that's why I find it so funny when I hear like the little speech by Obama or whatever, and all these other foreign leaders saying, Egypt, military, you better hand over power to the democratically elected leaders, or to the people. Hand it back to as if it was in the hands of the people. That's so funny to me. This is my website, Global Government News, or GGNonline.com. You have 5 days left if you haven't voted, if you'd like to. What is your favorite GGN topic? I'm just interested in finding out. So far, 30% say war on terror, liberty, sovereignty news, which is what I'm covering. Then followed by social engineering and eugenics, 60%. So the majority saying eugenics, social engineering, followed by Big Brother news, surveillance, and other. Also on YouTube, my channels are DDarko 2012 and 2013. Israel fears Egypt's coup could threaten U.S. military aid. So this is what it's all about, right? I was talking about U.S. funding for junta, a key part of Israel-Egypt peace deal. Israel's peaceful relationship with its neighbors in Egypt comes at a high price. The deal obliges the U.S. taxpayers to provide massive amounts of basically cash, unconditional military aid to Egypt. This is what I was talking about. So this is why they're talking about, we're going to withdraw military aid, because just in case the military starts to get any ideas, they'll say, well, you won't have a military because we own you. We write off your paychecks, right? So, and that's where the things get dicey. A military coup normally obliges the U.S. to suspend military aid, which is why the U.S. is avoiding calling this a coup in so many words, hoping to gloss over the fact. Egypt is a big deal, and a coup there is a little hard for the U.S. to just write off as no big deal, which has Israeli officials threatening the prospect that the U.S. might eventually be obliged to revoke aid to the new, regime, and violating the Egypt-Israel treaty in doing so. And they said they were worried about a power vacuum filling with jihadists. And it's funny, we were just talking about how the terrorists basically work for the CIA and for Israel. So you wouldn't think so, but then it goes in here and talks about how this could weaken Israel's fight against Hamas and all that. And like people wrote in the comment boards, I agree with them. I mean, dude, if Israel wanted to just exterminate the Gazans, they could. The Palestinians, they could just wipe them off the map if they wanted to. They're just playing games with them. They're experimenting on them, and it diverts attention from what they're doing, because, like I said, they're just based in this destabilization, constant conflict, which makes them not seem or appear to not be the aggressors. African Union, I don't even know why they call themselves a union anymore, to meet on Egypt's political crisis, could suspend the country's AU membership. So they say the removal of Egypt's president was in violation of the country's constitution. So more Americans want to cut aid to Egypt after embassy attack. So this is back in, 2012, October? So Americans want to cut aid to Egypt after the embassy was attacked. That was back when things were getting dicey back then. Egypt army opened fire on pro-Morsi protesters. So at least 3 supporters of Morsi were killed as crowds marches on barracks where Assad leader is held. So it doesn't really matter who they put in there. These people will still protest against them because, like I said, they'll not win. And when they so when you hear the West say democratically elected or the people, basically they're saying Western Zionist interests. BBC reporter Jeremy Bowen shot in Egypt as demonstrations end in bloodshed. So he was wounded as tens of thousands of people took to the streets over ousting of Morsi by the military. 30 killed, 300 injured in Egypt clashes. 30 people have been killed and over 300 injured across Egypt during the clashes between tens of thousands of opponents and supporters of Morsi. Muslim Brotherhood vows non-stop protests until Morsi returns, so this could start to get kind of ugly. So they're going to keep it going. It says here, he added that the army and security forces must stop shooting people, knowing that Morsi is the president of all Egyptians. Breaking Egyptian Aljazeera reporters arrested live on TV. This is from the 3rd, so... Israeli strip search Arab journalist at U.S. party. The U.S.-funded Al-Hara network said Thursday that one of its cameramen was interrogated and strip searched by Israeli security men while covering the July 4th party at the U.S. ambassador's residence near Tel Aviv. So we're talking about the Takfiri fighters, and have Lebanon, Syria, that Hezbollah, that kind of conflict that was going on where the Lebanese soldiers were killed. Well, this Syria is responsible for it. Pro-Assir demonstration and Sidon assaults media reporters. After Friday's prayers, the supporters of the radical Salafist cleric, Mr. Al-Assir, demonstrated in Sidon and assaulted the media reporters there despite the strict security measures taken by the Lebanese army. Just like Iraq, these 2 months of just record deaths, man. I mean, there'd be 50 people killed, 300, 400 injured, In Turkey, with the destabilization, even in Jordan, they were starting to say, we're starting to not support this whole thing anymore because they were starting to have their own little internal problems. Lebanon was another key one, just like with Egypt. They were trying to spark civil war. The Lebanese army launched a wide-scale military operation against the rebellion of Al-Assir, who was about to ignite civil war among the Lebanese people. Again, this is all directed at Syria, which is directed at Iran, which probably is indirectly directed at Russia. Oil jumps $2 on Egypt. U.S. data weekly gain in a year. So, it's always nice, to especially around Egypt, around that area. It always tends to manipulate gas prices or oil prices as if they're not already. So it's good for the petrodollar, or the U.S. dollar. Citigroup may fund Iraq-Jordanian oil pipeline, says official. Citigroup is among the international banks seeking to finance a pipeline that Iraq plans to build to export crude oil and natural gas through neighboring Jordan. Pakistan Prime Minister Sharif, who was just elected, meets with Chinese President. So it says here, they met during the official visit to Beijing, focused on courting Chinese investment in its country's ailing transport and electricity generating sectors. That's the main thing, right? Pakistan and China set sights on Arabian Sea Link. China and Pakistan set their sights on Friday on developing transport link through rugged mountains and lawless lands, a route that they hope will boost economic growth and bring capital or critical oil supplies to power-hungry China much faster. So, and I think this is the Gwadar port that they're referring to. So it's a 1,200-mile transport link described as a long-term plan to connect the Kashgar in northwest China to Pakistan's port of Gwadar, likely by road in the beginning and possibly by rail later. We also were talking about the Great Silk Road too, uniting the east and west trade. Submersible taps mineral deposits in South China Sea. So the manned deep submersible is helping China tap a treasure of iron manganese deposits that were first discovered in the South China Sea on Wednesday. Of course, this will be used for technology gadgets, which is what Africa, a lot to do with Africa and Afghanistan and Pakistan. Pakistan IMF agreed to $5.3 billion bailout. So International Monetary Fund has reached an initial agreement on the bailout of at least $5.3 billion. So I don't know what the hell they're thinking, but hey. Australia at risk of becoming an island as Pacific prospers. Says first it was the Pacific century, then the Asian Pacific century, now it's the Asian century. Now a nod towards the Chinese century. We're hearing of an Indo-Pacific century. Indian Ocean rim nations look to tap energy potential. Countries boast of 2/3 of the global oil reserves and 1/3 of gas reserves. Despite these huge reserves, though, the region has not achieved the full potential. Trans-Adriatic pipeline to bring Azerbaijan gas to Europe. They want to run it from the Greek-Turkish border, basically into Italy and Europe. That's basically a jab at Gazprom, Russia, taking on Gazprom and Lithuania's battle for energy independence. Currently, the country is 90% dependent on Russian energy. I've never even heard of this, but the EU Gulf Free Trade Deal edges closer. We're talking about the Gulf Cooperation Council, that's who's funding the terrorists, and the EU are close to being finalized. Croatia joins EU amid economic uncertainty. South American leaders rally behind Bolivia's Morales after he threatened to close the U.S. embassy. And as Mexico's Popo volcano grounds U.S. flights, police are cracking down on protesters in Peru. Thank you.